Hey guys, welcome to chapter 4, and this is looking at conflict resolution and settling disputes. So here's the title page, and unfortunately, I would like you to jot down the spectrum here as informal talk, negotiation, mediation, arbitration, and court action. And so it's a kind of a spectrum here of the least formal to the most formal. And so I'd like you to write that down in your notebook and also include then the characteristics that are under each of them. So under informal talk and mediation, you have that's less formal, just the disputants settle things, and they are not legally binding. And then on the farther end, you have arbitration and court action, and that's more formal. Many people are involved. Arbitration is enforceable by the courts. More time, more money for those. And then mediation's in the middle. So you kind of need to know that spectrum before you move on. So go ahead and pause this and write that down. All right, we'll look at negotiation first. And negotiation is the process by which people involved in a dispute discuss their problem and try to reach a solution to acceptable to all. It is important to learn to negotiate because the skills involved in handling conflict responsibly are used every day by people in all aspects of life. You negotiate when you have a disagreement with your parents, your friends, or your teacher, and you work out an agreement. The informality of negotiation makes it ideal for many types of problems. Sometimes people hire attorneys to negotiate for them. For example, people involved in auto accidents sometimes hire attorneys to negotiate with the insurance company over payments for injuries or damages to their cars. However, even if you use an attorney to negotiate, you must approve any agreement before it becomes final. Attorneys sometimes file a case in court and then still try to attempt to work out a settlement. That will often happen as well. It's kind of easier to think of negotiation in different phases. So here's phase one, and this is preparing for negotiation. And first, all involved should come to the discussion with a sincere interest in solving the problem. Then the issue that is causing the conflict must be identified as clearly as possible. Everyone should think about the issue that is really causing the problem and try to separate the demands from what the parties really want. And so you might have an issue with your parents perhaps, and maybe once you actually identify what the conflict is, you might realize that there really isn't a problem, or maybe that you both agree. But also maybe consider the issue from what your parents have. Maybe they want you to go to your grandma's house on Saturday, but you would rather hang out with your friends. Well, maybe if you looked at it their way, maybe you can see why they might want you to go to your grandma's house. And if they look at it from your way, maybe they can realize that you'd like some time with your friends too, and maybe you can come to an agreement there. You really want to identify a couple of solutions and um, try to think of things that both parties might agree on. So identify two solutions that you could come up with. Maybe it's spending part of the day with your grandmas and the other part hanging out with your friends, trying to again look at it from both sides. The second negotiation phase then is on the actual negotiation itself. And there, both parties must work together to identify the real issue that needs to be resolved. This involves listening carefully, understanding what is being said, and asking questions to clarify and gain more information. Once the issue is identified, both parties should work together to create a list of as many solutions to the problem as possible. Then the two or three most workable solutions should be identified from this list. Each party should be realistic about the solutions that are chosen, perhaps by giving examples so everyone can see how the potential solution will work. To conclude the negotiation, the main points of the agreement should be repeated to be sure that both parties understand them. It is also a good idea to write down the agreement and decide what should happen if the agreement is broken. The third phase in the negotiation is called post-negotiation. And here you want to make some decisions There might be some final solutions to the problem. For example, they should decide what to tell others about how the problem was handled. Everyone involved should be in agreement on what people outside the negotiation will be told. This could help deter problems in the future. In addition, both parties should be willing to discuss the problem again if the agreement does not seem to be working. So those are just some of the phases of negotiation. The next one we'll look at is arbitration. And if you remember from your spectrum, this is on the farther right side. So this is a rather formal and lengthy process. It is also binding by law. So in arbitration, both parties to a dispute agree to have one or more persons listen to their argument and make a decision for them. The arbitrator is like a judge, but the process is less formal than a trial. Arbitrators, like judges, have the authority to make the final decision, and the parties must follow it. Arbitration is common in contract and labor management disputes and in some international law cases. Agreements between labor unions and employers include arbitration clauses. This means that the union and the employer agree in advance to submit certain disputes to arbitration and to be bound by the arbitrator's decision. This happens in baseball sometimes. If the Twins and a player let it go to arbitration, then both of them have to take the price that the arbitrator says. So the Twins have nothing to say about it, and the baseball player doesn't have anything to say about it. They have to take whatever they say because that's legally binding. And the third one is mediation. And maybe some of you were even a peer mediator in grade school, or a couple of you might even be peer mediators here at high school. So, here the picture says, "Why did you steal my book?" And it says, "Well, why did you take my pencil?" And then the mediator steps in and says, "Come on, calm down. We can sort it out." Yep, that happens every day in high school, right? Okay, maybe not. But you get the idea. So a third person helps the disputing parties talk about their problem and settle their differences. They cannot impose a decision, and that's in arbitration they can, but in mediation it's just kind of clarifying what both sides are saying and trying to help them out. But they do not get to make a legally binding decision. And we just talked about peer mediation. So you have that in schools, and maybe some of you have been a part of that process. Landlord and tenants and domestics are sometimes dealt with through mediators as well. There are 6 steps to mediation, and we'll be doing some of these in class when we do a little mediation simulation. But the first step is introduction, introduce the ground rules. The mediator helps the people involved in the dispute feel at ease and explains the ground rules for behavior during the mediation. These ground rules can include such things as agreeing to remain seated and agreeing that any party may request a break during the mediation. Step 2, telling the story. Each person tells what happened. The person who brings up the problem usually tells his or her side of the story first. No interruptions are allowed. Then the other person explains his or her side. These people are the disputants. The third one is identifying positions and interests. The mediator tries to make certain that each disputant is clearly understood by listening carefully to each side, summarizing each person's view, and asking questions. Sometimes the mediator will encourage the disputants to ask questions and summarize each other's point of view in order to check for understanding. The fourth one, identifying alternative solutions, making a list. The disputants think of possible solutions to the problem. The mediator makes a list and then asks each disputant to explain his or her feelings about each possible solution. Sometimes in a difficult situation, the mediator might also meet with each disputant separately. The fifth one, revising and discussing solutions. Based on the feelings of the disputants involved, the mediator may help the disputants change some of the possible solutions and identify a better solution to which the disputants can agree. And finally, step 6, reaching an agreement. The mediator helps the disputants reach an agreement that both can accept. The agreement is written down. The disputants also discuss what will happen if they find out the agreement isn't working for them. So we have now covered mediation and arbitration and negotiation. And again, these are some other ways that we can settle things besides going to court. The court process can be time consuming and expensive, and going to court can even make some problems worse. For example, in divorces and child custody disputes, going to court often causes extreme anger and bitterness. Some people feel that by going to court, they will lose even if they win. So having these other ways of dealing, problem solving might actually be better and less time consuming and less expensive. Here's just two other terms to know. Settlement, and I talked a little bit about this when I talked about negotiation, but lots of times you'll try to reach a settlement before the case actually goes to court, especially in civil court. Over 90% of cases are settled before they actually go to trial. And then just another term, if you ever want to actually go into the profession of helping people negotiate and mediate for others, there's actually a career, it's called ombudspersons. And, you don't see this a ton. I've seen it with the nursing home that my grandma's at. They have an ombudspersons there. And they also have them a lot of time at different universities as well to kind of be a mediator between students and perhaps faculty or people at the campus. So it's just a person that investigates reported complaints and help achieve fair settlements. And that is the end of chapter 4.